welcome back. We are about to proceed here with day 2, round 3 of our Mage Knight playthrough here with the beautiful and talented Tovak. He has proceeded on the first 2 rounds. That would be day 1 and night 1. He proceeded through the town, from the portal up to the town, recruited a unit, bypassed the first maze, but took a keep, claimed a bunch of crystals. That was the end of the first day. The first night, he took out a catapult, rampaging enemy, burned down a monastery, recruited another unit, and sallied over here, taking out another rampaging enemy before parking it on a magical glade. And that was the end of night 1. We are now at the beginning of day 2, and we are looking at we have of course added a little bit to our deck. It starts with 16 cards. We've added 5, so we have a total of 21. We do still have a decent number of crystals in our inventory. We are starting the first turn with a gold mana token in virtue of it being day, and we're starting our turn on a magical glade, and that's one of the things that those do. We have 2 units in tow, and we have 2 skills. I chose a movement skill because I find them to be very easy to underestimate just how awesome it is to have just free two free movement every round. One thing I did not do in the last episode was when I took that second skill in virtue of leveling up, I forgot to afterwards flop Goldix's skill, which would actually be the flight skill. And that then goes into the communal offer. Now, it's not available to me until I gain another level that grants me a skill, but it is a tempting option because flight is really, really nice. For the same reason that having a couple of movement points is really nice every turn, having flight is really nice because it gives you 1 movement for free or 2 for just 2 movement points, which doesn't sound that incredible until you consider it only requires you to end in a safe space, and it doesn't actually prevent you from traveling across certain barriers like walls and the like. But as far as I can tell, even from passing over things like mountains and lakes that normally you would not be able to cross without a special skill, this is going to be one that allows you to do that as long as what's on the other side is something that you can enter. So this can really be it can be a game saver in the last round or 2 when you have a lot of ground to cover. If you don't happen to flop any movement, how do you cross 1 or 2 tiles, or even just across 1 tile with mountain range in between? So that's going to be very tempting to me the next time I level up. So that is down there now. We have that in place. We have already rolled the dice for the day, and unfortunately we did get a black mana token out of it, which means we've already got 1 die sort of off limits in the source, and that is never a good thing. When you're playing solo, you don't wind up with too many options. If you get a bad roll right out of the gate, you could another bad roll or 2, you could wind up with 2 or even 3 dice in the source that are not of any use to you until you can throw down something that can change that. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But other than that, we're in pretty good shape. We've already gained a few levels. Our reputation, because of the steps we've taken, isn't too bad, especially considering we've taken a couple of sites, and we did burn a monastery. So all things considered, it's not that bad. And we're about halfway through the current level, so we're about to open up another unit. And we've already revealed the first 2 kind of come prepackaged, but then we've revealed 3 more countryside tiles. And one of the things in the back of my mind is as I start getting to, in general, in solo conquest, I try to target day 3, the second to last round, for taking out the lower level city, and then night 3 for taking out the higher level city. Obviously, if you can take one out sooner, that gives you more flexibility. There have been times, for whatever reason, I took out the higher level first and then went after the lower level. You kind of have to take what comes, but the main reason I'm mentioning this now is as I make my plans, as I start looking at long term, what I want to do this round, what do I want to accomplish this round, one of the things I would love to do is to flip at least 3 tiles, because in solo conquest you have 7 countryside and then the cores start showing up. If I flip the last 2 countryside tiles and the first core, then next round the unit offer is going to consist of 2 gold units and 1 silver instead of 3 silvers. And the gold units are really, really, really nice. You're going to want to have at least 2 of them, I would think, before you assault your first city. So what that means is if I can get those down there, I can have night 2. And again, I'm not going to limit myself to this. I'm going to take the hand that's dealt to me as it comes, but at the same time, I'm going to have as an objective there recruiting some of those gold units, thinking that the bulk of day 3, the bulk of that day is going to be trying to get to and assault the lower level city. So I'm thinking next round, I'm going to want to maybe do some exploring to reveal that city, but I'm also going to want to try to get as many gold units as I can lay my hands on. So that is not an option for me if I don't get to that quartile by the end of this round. So that's definitely something that's in the back of my mind. And of course, leveling up and getting some spells into my hand would also be nice as well. But I am going to want to be moving. That's, again, one of those reasons why I grabbed that movement skill when I leveled up. So bearing all that in mind, let's take a look at our hand, and then we'll take a look at what tactic we would like to select for day 2. So first thing we do, of course, is draw our 5-card hand to have a look at what we got to play with. And it's not great for our first draw right out of the gate. But then again, I don't really know what I'm going to be facing. My plan, of course, is to immediately flop a tile here, and it's not super clear what that's going to be, so I don't want to start freaking out, because there could be a village or a monastery right next to me. Checking out the offer here, I've got additional crossbowmen that would be available in a village. These guys are available in a village. These guys are in monasteries. So and then of course with the Lost Legion, I've got even refugee camps are out there floating around as well. So I don't the reason I'm mentioning this is I've got this big recruiting units influence marker here, card here right out of the gate. And of course, one of the things that's going into picking your tactic is whether or not you've got a hand that you can do much with. But I do have a couple of units. I've got a movement token. I've got a combat card here. And I've got this that can turn this into even 3 attack if I need it, or 3 block. So I've got options even for assaulting a keep and then recruiting. So I'm not panicking just yet just because of this, but it's not a great draw right out of the gate, considering I'm not going to be backtracking to these monasteries to start recruiting anybody. I'm going to be pushing forward, trying to get through some tiles here. But it's not the end of the world either. So let's take a look at what our tactics options are. And we've got Great Start, which gives me 2 additional cards, which wouldn't be bad. But here's the thing. You get 2 cards in order to make your first turn a little bit better. However, it's very likely if I take card number 5 that the dummy player is going before me. And as a result, it's very likely that having that, 2 extra cards in my first hand results in me having 1 fewer turns this round. So I have to bear that in mind. Also, not knowing what I need, I don't know that I necessarily need to have those 2 extra cards right now. So Great Start isn't like jumping out at me yet, although I could live to regret it if I don't pick it. The right moment is an extra turn. But here's the thing, with the dummy player, it guarantees that you're not going first. And as a result, if you compare it with one of my options would be to grab number 3 and be guaranteed going first. So like contrast number 6. 6 means I get an extra turn at any point when I want, but it's not like I'm competing with anybody else, so it just means I get an extra turn. But if I'm going last, I lose that extra turn on the back end. Whereas by contrast, if I pick 3, I'm guaranteed going first, so I have that extra turn. I'm getting the same number of turns as I would if I was guaranteed going last. And then I have the additional benefit of being able to take a die and reserve it, and then on some turn use both dice. Now, if I take something like planning, I'm going to be able to draw 2 cards all the time as long as my... if I have at least 2 cards, I get 1 additional card. Sorry. So I'm drawing additional card every single turn, probably 4 or 5 times in the course of a round. And I'm very likely to be able to grab that and still go first. So Mana Steel or Planning, I think, would be better than Right Moment. Great Start for the same reason I don't like Right Moment. It just increases the odds of having 1 fewer turn, while giving me a benefit that might or might not be all that helpful. So, again, my hand isn't great, so I'm tempted by Great Start, but taking the long view of things, being guaranteed to have that 1 extra turn, I think I might just take Mana Steel. The reason being, if the dummy player happens to grab Planning, I can still do Great Start next turn and be guaranteed to go first and get an extra boost at the beginning. So that's always fine. Whereas if he grabs one of these 2, then I can grab Planning next round, which is really nice to have in the last day turn, to have those additional additional cards in your hand and being guaranteed to go first. Whereas if I take it now, I might get this benefit, which is great, but I might wind up losing Mana Steel and losing that turn this round. So I'm thinking right now, well, I'm tempted by Great Start. I know he's going to pick like 3 or 4 instead. I just know that with my luck, that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to hedge my bets, and I think I'm just going to grab Mana Steel to be guaranteed to go first, get that extra round, plus this little perk. And there's a very good chance, a 2/3 chance, that I have Planning saved for the last day, which is the time when I really want it most, because my hand's going to be really big at that point, most likely, and I want to try to burn through cards as fast as possible. So I think that's what I'm going to do, just to keep things, again, relatively simple here. Whoops. So I've got Mana Steel, and the way this works is when you take this tactic, take 1 mana die of a basic color from the source and put it on this card. You can use that mana on any of your turns this day. If you do, re-roll it at the end of the turn and return it to the source. Now, the way I'm reading this, I don't think the die on this card that you reserve counts as your die from the source. Otherwise, it's in fact, it's completely useless to you in a solo game, because you're going to have access to that die anyway, even if you don't reserve it. It would still, if you read it that way, it would still have its uses in competitive game. but I'm going to play, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but the way I'm going to play this is I get to take one die and reserve it here. I can still use a die out of the source, and then on some turn I can also grab this die as an additional source of mana. So just because I've got blue cards that I think are going to be handy for me, I think I'm going to grab blue and set blue aside. What I'm expecting to do, remember I have a gold mana token here that I can play with if I need a white, so I have that flexibility this turn. And I'm going to find out what I'm doing next time. Right as soon as I start my turn, I'm going to spend this double time to flip over a tile. And then I'm going to know much more about what I want to do. Until I make that move, I'm not going to know exactly what kind of mana I want. But basically on this first turn, it kind of doesn't matter which die I pick. I'm going to have access to the white and the blue and a gold. And just thinking long term, I think I have a few more blue cards that I usually wind up playing with mana rather than white. I could be wrong about that, but I'm just going to reserve the blue. I guess I don't really have a big reason why. It's kind of, I have access to both anyway, so it really doesn't matter which one I'm taking. So that's where I'm at right now. What I want to do now is begin my first turn of the round. And again, I have this gold mana to play with. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flop. I get to move this here because when I rotate these, they go back into the pile here. I'm going to rotate this to indicate that I've used it. And it's daytime, so this is going to give me 2 movement. And I'm going to spend those 2 movement points to flop a tile that I'm next to here and put it down right here. Now this is a legal placement because countryside tiles must be either placed so that they border two tiles, or they're adjacent to one that is bordering 2 tiles. And in this case, that latter applies. So with countryside tiles, what I couldn't do is wander over here and then place one over here. But I could put something over here. Okay, and then the other restriction is once I do get to the core tiles, if you follow these coastlines out, this V shape that the wedge map opens up, like with these 3 tiles making a line and these 4 tiles making a line, you cannot put core tiles on the coastlines, just the same as you can't put a countryside tile beyond the coastline. You can't put a core tile on the coastline. And you also, this would not be a legal placement for a core tile. Core tiles are not allowed to be placed merely adjacent to a tile that is adjacent to 2. Core tiles must be placed next to 2. So this right here would be a legal placement for a core tile. This would be a legal placement for a core tile, but right here would not until I have one here. Right here, even though it's on the coastline, this would be illegal now for a countryside tile, but if I had a tile here or here, then it would be fine for a countryside tile. And if there was a countryside tile here, then I could place a core tile here, etc. A little bit of minutia we didn't really need to get into right now, but let's take a look at what we revealed. And we have a monastery, first of all. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a monastery token, and that's going to add to our monastery skills offer. We get the mountain lore as an option. I'm thinking right now, most likely I'm going to wind up in this refugee camp, because the nice thing about the refugee camp is you can recruit like crazy in there. It gives you a lot of recruiting options. But let's fill the rest of this out. I do have a monastery there that I could visit. I'm going to have a rampaging enemy here. It is a orc digger. They're an easy kill. Now they're behind the wall and they're fortified, so they're going to be double fortified if I engage them. But they're a pretty easy kill. So that's like a free 2 points. It's not going to do me any good right now, but it would be a nice easy way to bump my reputation up again. again, considering that next round I'm going to have a big push towards recruiting gold units. That is something to be aware of. There's nothing else to place on this tile. I do have a refugee camp to get to, and I've got a maze here. And, you know, as much as I like the fact that I've added a bunch of cards to my hand, I've gotten an artifact, and I think I've gotten 4 advanced action cards, I want to say, are the 5 that I've added. I don't think I have a spell yet. And that's a concern for me because spells are really important. When you start taking out cities, spells play, as far as I'm concerned, they're the biggest, most important cards in the game, even more so as far as I'm concerned than artifacts. They're harder to play because they do drain mana, but the effects they have are just devastating. At least if you have artifacts that can help you power them. So the reason I'm mentioning that is I'm thinking, still planning my first turn here. I would really love to be able to go into that maze because I can go into that maze and spend 4 movement, and I can bring a unit into a maze to help me fight the brown enemy that's in there, and as a reward I'm guaranteed a spell. How much do I care about that? A lot, actually, as it turns out, because I am reminded that Call to Arms is in the spell offer. Call to Arms is nice. Call to Glory is spectacular, and I was just pointing out that next round, I'm going to want to be recruiting allied units. And Call to Glory is so awesome. You can just recruit gold units from the unit offer by playing a spell card. And that's really, really handy, obviously. I could even play it this round if it comes to it, possibly to recruit somebody. Although I do have this refugee camp. But that one spell can help you in combat a little bit. But more to the point, it might be the difference between me having a level 2 unit and a level 4 unit when I assault the first city. So that can be huge, and I think I want to grab that before it goes away forever. Remember this, at the end of this this round, Call to Arms vanishes. Now if I do take it, unless I also take Cure later, it's going to add a green crystal to Goldex, which is a little scary, but there are no green cards in the advanced action offer, which is going to take us, well, depending on how many I grab, it could take us a round or 2 into the game. I know that since he doesn't have any red crystals, and since I'm like super enamored of Blood of Ancients, it's not a bad card, but I'd rather throw that card into the dummy player's hand, increasing his chance of flopping a card that doesn't add any. So if I can keep getting him red cards and blue and white cards, I don't really care if he gets green crystals as much. So the only reason I wouldn't grab Call to Arms would be so that he gets a white crystal instead of a green, but that's not enough of a motivation for me. I really like Call to Arms, Call to Glory. So that, I think, is my plan, if I can manage it, is to get into that maze and grab that spell. Oh, and I forgot, before I go too much further, I forgot to shuffle and grab the tactics card for the dummy player, which is Great Start. Okay. So again, of course, I already guaranteed that I'm going first this round. Okay, so what do I have as my options here? Now, the rules for going into the maze, I've already identified what I would like to do if I can. Now I need to work out whether I can do it. How do I manage? I need to spend 4 movement. I need to get onto the maze and then spend 4 movement to go into the maze far enough to get a spell out of it. I can bring 1 unit with me, but I'm pretty sure, it's not made clear on this card, but I believe I've read at least on forums somewhere, if not in the rulebook, that if you use a unit to spend to generate movement points that are used for those movement points you're using in the maze, not to get onto the maze, but to generate movement points for entering the maze, then that is the unit that counts as the unit you're bringing with you, and then they can't activate to help you in combat. They can just have damage assigned to them. So I need to generate 4 movement on my own if I want to bring a helpful unit with me, and that's probably going to be the crossbowman. Now I can do that because I have stamina, but yeah, I have a blue card in the blue crystal, and I have the blue die, so I can play cold toughness for at least 5 block. I could play mana draw for choose something, block or attack. I can use the crossbowmen if I bring them for 3 block. And of course ranged attacks. I do have the potential for some enemies, 5 ranged attack is enough to kill some of the brown enemies. Not all of them by any stretch, but some of them. And I can do that for sure because I have a white die in the source. So I could play swiftness, I could play stamina with my gold, and then just play swiftness and that if it came to it. And then in a pinch, I've got some blocks, and if I have to spend heroic tail with I don't give a damn, that's worth 3 because it's an advanced action. So that's 3 attack or block already. So the reason I'm mentioning all of this is I think what I want to do is not use swiftness for movement, and I've already used double time to reveal the tile, so that's off the table. But I need to generate my 4 movement on my own, so I think I need to use the scouts to give me 2 movement to get onto the maze. And then I'm going to spend stamina, and I'll just use the gold mana for now, to get 4 movement, and that allows me to move on to and then enter the maze with 4 points of movement, so that if I defeat the brown enemy, I am able to get a spell card and grab Call to Glory. And I like my odds pretty well with the assistance of a unit here, and I can always take wounds in order to generate just a crap ton of attack. I've got worst case scenario, I get wounded, and then 3, 6, 8, 11, 13, 12 points of attack available to me. That'll slaughter any brown enemy that you want. And I might be able to block on top of that if I'm not able to kill them at range. So that's my plan. And now I'm committed to that once I flop this token. I can always pull all of those moves back because since revealing the tile, I can't bring that back, but any of the things, the playing of the scouts, the playing of that movement card, I can pull that back if I want to right now. But as soon as I flop over this monster token, I'm not allowed to retrace my steps any longer because I have revealed new information. So once you flip over a card, once you draw a token, once you flip over a tile, anything that is hidden, a die roll that you didn't know before, anything like that, where you are generating new information, consider that taking your finger off the chess piece, and you're no longer able. There's no more backsies at that point. So I'm going to draw my enemy here and see what I get. And we'll bring it down to our play area. And we are looking at a Medusa, which is actually just fine. They are paralyzing, which means I really didn't want to take any wounds. But they're also pretty fragile. Enemies in the maze are not fortified. And they're not natively fortified. They really have no defenses. They're just kind of dangerous if you don't block them. So I want to kill them in the ranged attack phase, and I will have to do that full play. 3 ranged attack is not enough. I need 4 points. I can get 3 with swiftness. and I can get another 2 by using my crossbows. If I don't kill him in the ranged attack phase, I have to reckon with that paralyzing attack. I'll be able to block it, but I'd rather spend my crossbows for their main purpose, which is range attacking, especially given that I want to be taking this card into that refugee camp if I can. So I'm going to kill the Medusa with ranged attack before she ever gets to do anything for me, and that is 5 points on the fame track. Now the Medusa does not affect reputation one way or the other, but I do get 5 points. I was 18, now I'm at 23. I am 1 shy of a level, which is great. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my shield over the 4 on the maze. It doesn't really matter in a solo game. You're not allowed, one player, the same player is never allowed to go into the same maze more than once. But in a multiplayer game, multiple people can go into the same maze, but if somebody's already done the 4-pointer, the next person in has to choose between the 2 and the 6. So in a multiplayer game, it does matter where you're marking it. For me, I'm just marking that I've been here. Either way, it will still count as victory points at the end game. And I get to claim my spell as a reward. I will grab Call to Arms, and that goes to the top of my deed deck. Therefore, I know that one of my next 2 cards is going to be that. And I go ahead and I refresh the offer, adding Whirlwind to the back end. As I'm exploring, I do have an eye towards adding spells for the reasons I mentioned before. Whirlwind is one of those spells I just have a hankering for. I just really like it. Really cheaply being able to just negate enemy attacks can be huge. You can have some really nasty just wandering enemies that's helpful for, Draconum and stuff. Taking out a dragon next to a city so you don't have to worry about him too, that kind of thing. Very handy in the right situation. You have to worry about arcane resistance and things like that, but arcane immunity. But nobody's resistant to white, so you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. And of course, with black, you can just go ahead and annihilate something for free, as it were. It's actually less useful, I find, to play Tornado than Whirlwind because you have to wait until the attack phase before you can play it, and then you're only killing one enemy. So I usually wind up playing just the regular effect, but I use the crap out of it. I find it to be very, very nice. So I have my eye on that already, is what I'm saying. And that is the end of my turn. Because I have interacted, I can't play any more cards. I only used 2, and that is something I'm concerned about. I still have 17 cards in my deck, but I do know that the next time I gain a level, which is the next time I get any fame, I will be improving my hand up to 6. So I'll be getting more cards into my hand pretty quickly. If I wind up anywhere near a keep that I conquer as well, then I'm going to be having, at that point, a hand of 8. So I'm going to start being able to go through those pretty quickly if I start playing a lot. Something to bear in mind, but not something to worry about too much yet. So the gold mana has been used. That goes away. I'm going to need to re-roll that die. These go to my discard pile. I reset that. The downside of what I just did is I used my 2 units, but they're not stellar units. The scouts especially are kind of like a throwaway. And out of it, I got 2 victory points, 5 fame, and a spell at the cost of 2 cards. So I am pretty happy with that. So yeah, all that's left is to draw back up to my hand limit. So I get Call to Arms and now Stout Resolve, which is not a bad card. Very flexible. Remember, I am right next to the refugee camp, and having another card with some influence on it is always good to go with Heroic Tale. All that's left right now is to roll back my mana die and then flop the dummy. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll see what we get. It's a green. Alright, so now let's take a look at the dummy here. Dummy dum. And we'll go ahead and we'll flop him. We got a blue. Got a red. Don't like to see that. And don't be green. Okay. Not a good start. Because he has 3 green crystals. And there's another red. And another red. Okay. That was pretty horrible. I had to... First turn out of the gate, I had to flop 6 cards. And of those 6, half of them were the reds that I do not want to see going away. That was horrific. So that's a third of his deck. Worst case scenario, he does that 2 more times and then declares, meaning he takes 3 more turns, which means since he just finished his and I can go after he declares, I have at least 4 more turns, but most likely I'm going to have 5 more, possibly 6, but most likely with all those reds going away, most likely 5. So that's where I'm at with respect to that. And now the question is, what do I want to do on my turn? Alright, so what do I want to do next? I've got this nice spell, Call to Arms, which allows me to make use of a unit in the offer. I like to get it because of the recruiting potential, but of course in order to play that you need black mana and the ability to make use of black mana. I might have black mana in the source, but that doesn't mean I can use it. I have to be able to use it in certain situations, such as if I'm down in a dungeon. So if I happen to be down in a dungeon, and there's one not far away, if I happen to go down into this dungeon, then I could potentially play Call to Arms, Call to Glory, and recruit a unit for free. So that's an option for me. But I'm also right next to the refugee camp. And the refugee camp is really nice because it allows you to recruit units that, you know, kind of could be anywhere. This is not included in the base game. This is from the Lost Legion expansion. So units that are available in villages, you can recruit for the cost that they normally are recruited from. If they're available in keeps, mage towers, or monasteries, you add 1 to the cost of recruiting. And then for a unit that's only available in cities, then you can add 3 to the cost and still be able to recruit them. So potentially much more expensive, but maybe not as expensive as actually getting into a city. So for instance, I could go down here, even if I had that black mana to play, I go down into a dungeon, I have to fight something while I'm down there, I might have access to that black mana, hopefully I have access to white mana too, but I recruit that unit, it can't help me in combat, and meanwhile I've spent a ton of movement points to get back there, and I have to spend that movement points to get back. So getting that unit for free really rapidly doesn't look like that much of a bargain, especially since I have a really good recruiting card in my hand and I can just bop over onto this hill and start recruiting people. Now let's take a closer look at where we're at right now. I'm taking a -1 penalty for recruiting, and I'm right next to a level, which will give me another unit slot, another command token to fill with a unit. In terms of my hand, I've got 2 units already occupying my 2 command tokens, but I've already used both of them, and one of them is not the best unit in the world. It's nice to have them, but it's better to have other units. And here's the thing, when you start the next round, these things automatically refresh. You can potentially play cards that will refresh them, so you can use them more times than once, even in the same round, and of course they'll come back next round, so it's not like they're gone forever just because I've used them. I could even still assign damage to them, so they still have their uses. But if I recruit a unit to fill this slot, basically it's called disbanding, but you basically throw away the units that's there. If you wish, you can recruit someone to just replace an existing unit, whether you've used them or not. And the benefit of this is if you have used that unit, no matter whether you've used them or they're wounded or what, they could have 2 poison wounds on them and be used. And you can still replace them. And the unit that replaces them is unwounded and not activated yet. So they're ready to rock right out of the gate. So if I recruit a unit to replace the scouts, even before I level and get another command token, I will have that unit in this spot and they're ready to be used right out of the gate. So the question then is, what am I going to do now? I can engage these diggers here, but if I'm engaging them across the wall, they become double fortified, which doesn't really matter too much. It's not really going to hurt me in any appreciable way. But the question is, what do I want to do in order to take them out? So let's take a look at our options down here at our hand. So the diggers are not going to do a ton of damage. They're not worth that much, but again, I'm really close to gaining a level. And with Heroic Tail, obviously, the big use of this is to be able to recruit. It's a nice influence card in the first place, and then on top of that, it helps your reputation, which, given where we're trying to get to, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, we're trying to get gold units, and we're trying to start recruiting gold units. I do want to manage my reputation to make that easier. Call to Glory is going to help if I can hopefully play it next round and in the final round when I can use the black mana, but I want to try to use this to recruit a unit, which means I want to get over to that camp. Now, I can move onto that camp, and there actually is a rule with these walls that if I move, enemies they don't cross the wall to attack you because you moved. So if you moved and that space that you moved into is separated by a wall from a rampager, the rampager doesn't engage you just because of the movement. But I can still move and engage as my action if I choose to. So if I'm looking at taking out the diggers, and again, this is because I'd love to level up, because I'm thinking when I get a level, I'm going to have a slot to recruit from when I'm in the camp. So my thought is move onto the camp, kill the diggers, so that I can recruit to the brand new virgin empty spot. Another option, of course, is move onto the camp and recruit before killing those guys, and maybe even forsake killing those guys. But what that would entail would be me replacing the scouts, and I might not want to do that if I don't have to. So basically, what I'm looking at is kill the diggers, gain a level. It helps my reputation on top of everything else. Makes recruiting next round that much easier, and then I can recruit somebody into the brand new spot. So that's, I think, what I would like to do if I can. The camp is on a hill, so I need 3 movement to get there, and then it's free to engage. It's +1 movement to move on to that space across, but the only thing the wall does combat-wise is make them double fortified. But if I can kill them without range, then it doesn't actually do anything. It's daytime, so I get +2 movement for free from double time, and I'm looking at mana draw right now and noticing that it allows me to pull an extra die from the source, but especially with mana steal, I only have 1 die in the source because the other one I rolled right at the beginning was black, which means I could access it if I was able to play, like if I was in a dungeon and I could use black mana, then I could play mana draw in order to be able to access both of these at that moment. But right now it's just no good to me, even though I have Call to Arms in my hand. Now I could use mana draw to re-roll and try to get that die back into circulation, which I'd kind of really like to do, especially with having this one kind of pulled off to the side here. But the problem I'm having with that is I don't have any white mana to power that. So, I might have the opportunity to use Call to Arms later, and even if I don't, I can play it sideways with I don't give a damn for 3 points of something, as opposed to mana draw, which is 2. If I get white, I'm going to be using it on Heroic Tail, most likely. So I don't see short term. I don't see myself being able to get much out of mana draw. So here's what I'm thinking: I use double time and play mana draw sideways to get the 3 movement I need to move on to the camp. Again, that movement does not cause him to engage me, but I can choose to engage him. And if I do, he's got just grab him and take him down here. He's got 3 attack and 3 armor, and there's really nothing else special about him. So he's got low numbers and nothing but this fortification thing. That's why he's worth only 2. And I can play Cold Toughness straight up for 3 block. I don't even need the blue. And that blocks him just fine. And I could power Stout Resolve. Oh, here's something. I could power Stout Resolve with green to get 3 attack, and that would kill him. And I wouldn't even need to use either of these. More importantly, I don't even need to use the green mana crystal, because I can play this sideways with I don't give a damn, because it's an advanced action. I can use that to get 3 attack. So I can block. I don't do anything in the ranged phase. In the block phase, I block their attack with Cold Toughness, and then I kill them with Stout Resolve sideways, and I don't give a damn. So I've used both of these, and I have these 2 remaining in my hand. I have managed to kill this guy and moved on to the refugee camp. That's 2 fame, which gives me a level, and which also improves my reputation, which takes me out of the negative into the 0, which is going to be handy next round when I try to recruit somebody. And my token here opens up a unit slot, and my hand size is now 6 going forward. So at the end of my turn, I'm actually going to draw up to 6 cards, which is a nice thing. And that actually is the end of that turn. So I'll go ahead and plop that back there, get these guys back, and draw up to 6, and we'll see where we go from here. Another mana skill. Okay. Well, I have Threaten came up, which is nice. We'll see what our options are when it comes back around to my turn. But right now, we're going to go over to the dummy player and do his flop. And he's got a green and a blue and a blue. Okay, so he's flopping 4 cards this turn, and there goes a red, unfortunately. But he only flopped 4, so that's not too bad. He's got 8 left, and we're in decent shape. So now coming back to me, I'm looking at recruiting. Now the units in the offer here, the way the refugee camp works is if they're available in the village, you can recruit them for their regular cost. If they're available in the monastery, you add 1 to their cost. And I'm not suffering any modifiers for reputation. So if I want to get the... I'll tell you straight up, I've got my eye on the Red Cape monks. I've already got an Utum crossbowmen. They're not bad. They're certainly better than the peasants. The Red Cape Monks I have had some good luck with. It really depends on what you're fighting, but having the option for fire attack or fire block can be really handy against certain enemies. And it's only, in this case, it's a 2-point influence difference, but I think I can handle that because I still don't have any white mana available to me, unfortunately. Although I could play concentration and generate it, but well, you know what? Before I do anything, before I decide on what cards I want to play, I'm realizing that if I'm recruiting, I'm not going anywhere this turn, and I have 2 free movement every turn. So let's make use of it and see what we might be doing next before making any decisions. So I'm going to use my double time skill to generate 2 movement and flop this tile right here and see what we get, and that's actually interesting. I've got a keep and a mage tower. The mage tower I'm not next to, so I don't know what's in there, but the keep I'm next to, and that is a unit that I'm thinking I'm probably going to want to fight. You know, I might want to go here, and the next tile is actually a core. Remember, one of my objectives here is to try to get to a core tile. If I just bop up here and take this keep, that's going to give me options to recruit. It's going to give me fame and increase my keep limit, or keep numbers for late game. And I expose that core, which means I do get those gold units for next round. So I'm thinking I'm going to want to take care of that. Toot sweet. And of course we'll see what actually turns up on that tile as well when the time comes, but given that I want to assault that and then come up here and flip, I am thinking what I'm trying to do is recruit a unit. Okay, so yeah, okay. Here's what I want to do, and I'll explain my rationale for it in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play Heroic Tale. I can't power it with mana. I could use concentration to do so, but I don't need to, because I have a need of, at this point, 8 influence in order to recruit the Red Cape Monks. And if I play Heroic Tale Vanilla, that's influence 3. And it's going to help my reputation if I'm recruiting, which is what I'm doing. I can play Threaten with that, basic, and add 2, so that's 5. And I'm going to play Call to Arms sideways. I've already used double time, and I'm going to use I Don't Give a Damn with Call to Arms for another 3. So that's 3 plus 2 plus 3 is 8 influence. And that will allow me to grab the Red Cape Monks. I accidentally left this. Those were there from the last turn. I didn't clear it first. So the reason I'm doing it this way is, I've been kind of hanging on to Call to Arms, thinking I can use it to maybe, like, I probably won't be able to use it to recruit because I can't use any black mana unless I go underground. So it's not like it's getting me a unit. Besides which, I just filled this unit slot. So even if I go into that keep and try to recruit or something like that, even though I could use this to magically recruit, I might replace the scouts with a crossbowman, which is an improvement, and they would be usable this round. But the whole point of going up here and opening up that core tile is I want gold units so that I can recruit gold units into these slots. So if I'm going to replace the scouts, I'd rather replace them with a gold rather than replace them with a crossbow, only to replace that with a gold. So I don't see a big reason to hang on to Call to Arms it might give me access to a unit ability, but they're not spectacular up here. So what am I going to use Call to Arms for? Not a lot is basically the thinking here. So I'm going to turn it into the Red Cape Monks. And that way I can hang on to concentration in order to reckon with that keep. And we'll see if I'm using that to generate additional block or something like that. Yeah, we'll have to figure out what I'm doing. I think my one card that I can augment for block is already spent, but I might have instinct coming up, which I could do. So that could give me 4 block with concentration, 6 block with concentration. So if I get yeah, if I draw instinct, that'll help me with the why am I doing this? That'll help me block these guys. Yeah, there's a bunch of ways concentration can help me fight that guy. So I like to hang on to that. Mana Storm. I could throw that and grab a green crystal really quick, but I don't know if I can get a white die, I could free up that black die here. But I don't want to use concentration to just get a white token in order to do that. So I think I'm just going to hold fast at this point. I can go in there with Rage, Concentration, and these red capes, plus at this point 3 more cards, and I don't give a damn to turn Mana Storm into 3 of something, if nothing else. So I've got, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there and draw up to my 6 additional. All right, they're not coming together, but I'm holding on to one or the other, it seems like, in order to get those two to mesh up, because once again, that's going to give me 5 siege, and what do you know? That's exactly what I need to crush this guy. So yeah, my life next turn just got a whole lot easier. So I'm a happy camper there. All right, I just realized that when I recruited that unit, I forgot to tap this up a spot because of Heroic Tale that I used in recruiting. So that goes up, and I'm even more in the bonus territory. And then we'll come back over here, and now it's time to flop the dummy player. And he's going to go 1, 2, and 3, and we get a red. He's got 5 cards remaining. So unless he flops a green, he's going to have 2 cards flopping and 1 card, 1 turn, 2, wow, I can't talk. 2 turns flopping cards and then 1 turn declaring, meaning I would have 4 turns left this round. There is a chance he could flop a green, in which case I would only have 3 turns left. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes, but most likely I have 4. So I do have some time to play around here. But I already know what I want to do here. I can, of course, toggle double time. You may have doubted me when I said how useful that skill was going to be. And then I think I will just play, just because I have the blue in reserve and I want to use the green for these guys, I'm going to play March in conjunction with that. That'll give me 4 movement. And that is sufficient to move on to the keep, which is in a wasteland. So I'll grab that token and come on down here. And top this guy here for reference. Now we need to take this guy out, and really all we have to do is play concentration with that green die from the source to power Crushing Bolt to get Siege 5, and that just kills him outright. There's really nothing else to do there. He's worth 4, so let's go ahead and take care of that. That's taking me from 24 to 28 on the fame track. Actually, no. It should be 29, because I think I moved I was 1 away from leveling, and I took 2 from the diggers, so that should have taken me to 25. And then I had 4 to take me up to 29 when I kill this guy, but assaulting the keep drops me down, still into the 0 modifier, but down a step on the reputation track. And that's a full turn, because once you assault, unless you do something else, and I still can't do anything with Mana Storm. In fact, now that I've taken this, I can't even play it basic, because there's no basic dies in the source. That's not in the source anymore. So I'm totally done with this turn. I'll set that aside for re-rolling. We will grab this, throw those aside, and let's take a look at what we get. We got a white. Okay. It gives me an option for Mana Storm, if nothing else, but of course we need to find out what we're flopping. Oh, another thing I need to do is add to my keeps, and of course, because we are in the keep and we own 2 keeps, our hand size of 6 is increased by the number of keeps to 8 when we draw for our next hand. So I draw up to 8 now, and I've got a whole mess of cards to play with here. I like to keep them in something like order. And that's what we have to play with. Now that's the completion of my round. I didn't have to use the red capes. I've got a lot of attack here. And on my next turn I've definitely got some options. Let's take a look here at what the dummy is going to do. No greens, no greens, no greens, no green. No, be green, don't be green. God. Alright, so yeah, that happened. He flops the rest of his cards. He actually would flop 6 if he had 6, but doesn't matter. He's yeah, he has used up his deck. So I know right now, of course, I'm going to go, then he declares, and then I get 1 more turn. So I have 2 turns left to use up all these cards plus the 3 more in my deck. So I can go nuts here. And I do have this extra die here that I've been saving for what turned out to be no reason whatsoever thus far. But let's take a look at what we want to do. First thing, of course, is I've got my reveal a tile for free token down here, my double time. And isn't that convenient that that just happens to be 2 movement, at least during the day. And that's going to allow me to place my core tile, which means before I forget, I'm going to go over here and do elite units on, and that will populate that with gold, silver, gold. And I've got a mage tower, which I do reveal because I'm next to it, and it's day. Those guys are not an easy kill, unfortunately. And then there's a, I think that's called a high dragon or something like that. They're tough. Dragons range, I think, from 7 to 9 fame for killing. So when they're 9, you can tell they're nasty. This guy's cold fire, so unless you're trotting out cold fire blocks, like ice block is not enough, fire block's not enough, and certainly regular block's not enough. You have to have cold fire block, and that means pretty much you're going to need 12 block to stop him from attacking. And then when he hits you, it does 6 damage, but then he's brutal, so it's 12 damage. So if I can't generate 12 block to fight him, I'm taking 4 wounds or losing units, or wounding units anyway. And then on top of that, I need to do 9 damage. The one nice thing about it is you would almost kind of expect him to be physically resistant, but he's not. He's just resistant to fire and ice. So the most basic attacks are the ones that are best against him, which is kind of his one weakness. But of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm nowhere near. I got to get through these guys first if I'm even looking at him. I I do want to start blowing through cards. I don't need to move around too much. Like, I might be tempted to go over here and reveal tiles, but I've accomplished my goal as far as that goes, and I still have 3 turns left to find the cities and conquer them. So now I'm at the point where I'm thinking, I got to the gold units. I need to recruit gold units, but I'm not going to be able to do that until next round. So right now what I want to do is try to build up my power base as much as I possibly can. And one thing I really haven't collected enough of thus far is spells. I think I have 1 spell in my hand, and it's a recruiting spell that's not of much use in combat. So I'm tempted by this mage tower. Maybe even hit that and then come back here, although it's a lot of movement. Maybe hit that guy and then come back down here, or possibly just swing down here to take these out. But if I can get a bunch of fame and maybe a spell or 2, that would be a good way to wind up, to wrap up this this round. Again, I only have 2 turns. So I don't anticipate that I'm going to be... I don't like moving down here, deciding to come down here and not here without knowing what's in here. And then if I take this, I don't have a lot else to do. I might be able to take that, but my hand's going to be small. Whereas if I go here, I'm still next to this keep. I forgot to mark this keep. Let me do that real quick. I'm still next to this keep. When I go here, so I might have a shot at this guy. 9 fame is nothing to sneeze at, and it's more doable to take this guy out. It helps my reputation too for recruiting purposes. So 9 fame and +2 rep versus this for 10 fame. It's almost no contest if you can do it. So let's see if I can move in here and take this guy out. Let's take a look at our hand and figure that out. All right. So I've already used double time to flip that tile. I'm pretty sure that if I am fighting that thing, I'm probably going to want... I mean, there's no point in not using my ruby ring right now. I've got 2 red cards for combat to take this thing on. I don't have a lot of other combat options. I don't have much... I do have white for swiftness. But these are really the combat cards and the red capes that I'm going to be relying on. Unfortunately, they're fire. Which is, if anything, a negative right now. But... I'm going to play the ruby ring, because here's another thing, is if I want to try to use up a few cards so that I can make sure to get this used up. And who knows what's down here? I don't remember. I know that, well, for one thing, I know Tranquility's in there. I haven't seen Tranquility yet this round. And so I know that's one of those cards, which now that I'm realizing that is actually pretty awesome. Because I have the luxury of taking some wounds, because I have a green crystal in my inventory, so I know I can play Tranquility if I need to. So let's take a... okay, so I play the ruby ring. It's +1 fame and 1 crystal to my inventory and 1 token. Now I have 3 crystals in my inventory, and you can't go above 3. So when you gain a crystal and you're maxed out, you gain it instead as a token. So as a result of this, I gain 2 red tokens and 1 fame. So let me add the fame there so I don't forget, up to 30. And then back down here. Let me grab the enemy token that we're looking at here. Let me recenter my camera while I'm at it. And grab this guy and come down here. Alright, so he only has a 3-point attack, but it's fire, which means it's hard to block, and it's brutal, means it does double damage. So I don't have any ice block, therefore I need to, it's basically a 6-point attack. And then he's resistant to both physical and fire. So I have nothing that I can hit him with that he's not resistant to, on top of everything else. Now he only has 4 armor, so I can generate 8, no problem, especially with those red tokens. I'm not worried about that. But I'm wondering how I would generate the 6 block. What are my options for generating 6 block? I mean, I could play 2 block with a rage, or I could play the 2 rages for 8 attack, and that would be enough to kill him. And I could play my red capes and then a couple of cards sideways, which is an option. But you know what? I'm going to, just because I want to kind of this is a tutorial. I'm not super worried about maximizing everything. I'm in pretty good shape so far, so I just want to kind of demonstrate a little tactic here that can come in handy. Like if I had Tranquility as one of my cards already, or if I know it's coming up because it hasn't shown up yet, and I know I'm going to be able to play it, even though I can block this guy's attack, and it might not even be the best idea because I'm going to have to play at least 2 cards. I'm going to have to play 3 cards to do it. And what I have in the back of my mind here is after I take this guy, I'm going to get a spell. And that spell is possibly Whirlwind. And I have white mana in the source. Which means when I go to fight this dragon, he does not have arcane immunity. So if I kick this this mage tower, I'm going to draw Whirlwind. Which means I can engage this guy and just say, no, you can't attack me. Go away. And then I have to come up with 9 points of physical attack, which should be doable. I don't remember what other cards I might have in here, but I'm going to have the ability to play at least one of them for... I have Mana Storm, so that's 3 points of attack. Now, if I'm fighting that dragon, I'm going to want physical attack. And against the golems, it doesn't matter. So I'm actually thinking to kill the golems, I want to play Rage and Red Capes. And maybe save this Rage card for use against the dragon over there. So what I'm going to do, check this out and see how this works. I'm going to have to move on to the keep, first of all, in order to engage these golems. So I have to generate movement, and the movement required is 5 because he's in a swamp. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm also worried about if I take a couple of wounds, because here's the thing, I know I'm going to be drawing up to 8 cards, but my plan here is to take wounds and not block his attack. So I'm adding cards here. I want to make sure I use up enough cards so that I can use up my deck and get the most out of it. Mana Storm might allow me to release this black die, but I'm not seeing that I'm going to have much use for it, even if I do release it. And that's certainly not the best use of my white crystal with Whirlwind coming. So what I want to do instead is I'm going to play Mana Storm. Is that what I want to do? Yeah. I'm going to play Mana Storm to turn the white die. What that does is you choose a mana die from the source, gain a crystal to your inventory, and re-roll that. So I'm taking that die from out of the source and basically just putting it in my inventory. And this could wind up, when I re-roll it, it could be gold or white again, and I'm up a crystal. And then if I needed white for some other reason, I could always play crystallize with the blue from my mana steel and grab whatever color I want as well. So yeah, so I'm going to do that. I just need to re-roll that die really quick and see what I... Alright, so that came out green, which is just fine. So remember, I played the Ruby Ring and Mana Storm. I haven't actually moved onto the thing. I've grabbed this guy's token already, but I still have to move onto that tower, and I need the 5 movement. So I can do that by playing Stamina. I've already used this to flip the tile in the first place. So I need both of these cards, and I got to power at least one of them to get the 5 that I need. And I just rolled green in the source, so I can do that to get the 6 mana, the 6 movement that I need. So that'll take me on to the Mage Tower, and as a result of the attack, I automatically lose 1 whether I win or lose. Lose 1 reputation for the assault. I'm going to go ahead and let his attack through. That's going to hit me. Remember, I know I'm going to be able to cure that. Worst case scenario, I use up a crystal. And I can always try to get that back right here, and I don't have to spend the cards that I would spend farming a crystal and then healing myself. I don't have to spend those cards, possibly more of them, blocking, and I can save them for the dragon. So, yeah, what I'm going to do is play the Red Cape Monks using a token for Fire Attack 4, and I'm going to play one of my Rage cards for Physical Attack 4. That's a total of 8 inefficient attack against the Golem, which is reduced therefore to 4, which is still enough to kill him. So that there is 5 fame. And that takes me to 35, which is enough to level, which is beautiful. And leveling takes place at the end of my turn, so I don't actually do that yet, but I do know that I'm going to choose a spell, and I already have my heart set on Whirlwind because I just like it long term, and that's from, actually I get that right now, sorry. I get that immediately upon capturing the tower, but it goes to the top of my deed deck. And then I'll refresh the offer there. Expose is also nice. I might want to stay and learn that next time. I would love to give him Blood of Ancients to the dummy player when I level. But no matter what one I pick, I know I'm going to add one of these to my hand, sorry, to my deck, which means I'm going to have 5 cards. I'm drawing up to 8, but that's actually an issue because I did, in adding those 2 wounds, I can't get rid of them yet, and I want to keep. I want to keep Rage for use against that dragon. But I can get Crystallize out of my hand right now. Because what's going to happen is I've already added the spell here, and I'm going to add an advanced action, so I'm going to be drawing 5, which it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I don't draw all 5, except I've been banking on getting Tranquility out of it. So I need to make sure at the end of this turn I only have 3 cards in my hand, and 2 of them are these wound cards that I can't get rid of right now. So, I mean, you can rest and discard wound cards, but I've already acted this turn, so that's not resting. I think what I'm going to do is play Crystallize with a... I don't know what color this is going to come out to be until the end of my turn. Obviously, I'm not going... my options are... Well, actually, my only option is to use the blue die from the sword, from my Mana Steel here, to power this. And I can get a crystal of any color I want. So do I want white, blue, or green? is the question. I already have white, and the only white I know I need is for whirlwind. I know I need one green for tranquility. I'm going to grab white with this. I'm already, after looking at the advanced actions, I was thinking I might grab chivalry. Because I know I probably sound fixated, but I want those gold units next, starting next round. And chivalry can help with reputation. And it's a combat card, which I might, it's not a bad combat card on top of it. So, yeah, I'm gonna grab white. I mean, in general, going forward, if I want to be using Call to Glory or something like that, I'm gonna need white for that. So I'm gonna go with white, knowing that I'm gonna want it going forward. Probably more likely than green. Although concentration, of course, all the crystals have their uses. I know I'm fixated, laser focused on using white pretty soon. Next round, so I'm gonna want to make sure I have it after playing Whirlwind. Now I might roll white with these dice and I'm fine, but I have to make this decision now. So I'm gonna grab white, and then I actually don't right now have a way of playing either of the cards that I have left to actually do anything of any use. So what I'm going to do actually is discard swiftness. The reason for that is, and at the end of your turn, you're allowed to discard as many cards as non-wound cards out of your hand as you like. I think Rage is going to be more useful against that dragon if I'm able to attack him. And I'm drawing 5 cards with I don't give a damn, and I know he's not going to attack me. So I just have to find a way with 4 cards, given that I don't give a damn, and I have red mana in the source and Rage. I just have to find a way to generate 5 attack with 4 cards. It's not going to be a problem. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to take that dragon out next turn. So let's wrap this up. I am in the tower. I need to drop my token on there to mark it as my own. Thou beest mine. I've already taken my spell for that. The resolution is, of course, clearing up the area here, which means bye-bye tokens. And I'll scooch these over, roll those in a sec. You guys are discarded. And I'm not going to draw up yet. I first level up. And as a level up, I get, of course, this time a skill. So I get 2 skills to choose from. I Feel No Pain is actually kind of interesting to come up right now because it allows you to discard a wound and draw a card. And you can do it every turn. So if you have a trickle of wounds or you have a bunch of wounds in your hand, you could just kind of ignore them. But even with this, and this is one of the reasons why I go back and forth on Arithia as a character as well. She's got really, really great uses. She can turn wound cards into attack and the like. Really, she's got some wonderful skills for actually using wound cards, which makes her really unique and really powerful. The problem is, to benefit from that, you need wound cards in your hand, and that really hurts you in the late game. So I tend to not love these skills out of the box. And having free combat, and especially when you make it as flexible as ice or physical, is really handy. Now, I also have the possibility of taking flight, which, especially in conjunction with double time, is really nice. I could just toggle those two and fly 2 spaces every turn and just be wandering around. The problem is flight doesn't allow you to move into like a keep or anything like that, because you have to end this move in a safe space. And it's only once a turn. Sorry, once a round. So it's pretty limited. I mean, it allows you to go over like a mountain range at times, so it's very handy in those respects. But remember where I'm at right now. I just was telling you, I've got my core exposed, and it's not going to be hard to get 3 core tiles over here. And so I don't anticipate it being very difficult. I don't anticipate needing a ton of move. In fact, I'm probably just going to try to take this guy out and then maybe even loop back here so that I can just kind of plop one, plop another one. And I got 2 tiles up here, and then scooch up over somewhere and grab out another one. It's not going to be that difficult. And I got 3 rounds to do it. With my free movement every turn, I'm not worried about it. So this is very often a nice flight, a nice skill to grab, but right now I'm almost more like I'd rather just grab this so that I can keep slaughtering stuff and conquering to build up that power. And it's also free, versatile attack in a city assault as well. So I think I'm going to grab that, and of course that gives me the flexibility to choose any advanced action that I want. And as I was saying earlier, I think I want to grab chivalry to help manage that reputation, and I'm going to get it for next turn, so I'm going to actually be able to bump my reputation fighting this dragon. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do with my level. And I've now used Mana Steel. He's been done for a while. Let's just get these out of here. And yeah, now all that's left is to draw back up. And I'm going to draw all of those cards. And yeah, there's Tranquility. So I'm going to be able to... Oh, okay. First I've got to roll my dice. So here we go. Okay. That's interesting. Another black. But I don't even have a way of drawing more than 1 die from the source anyway, and gold lets me do whatever I want. So I'm happy with that. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. Right now, I think what I want to do with my last turn, remember we bop over the, I didn't mention it, dummy, on his turn the dummy declares end of round. That's what he does. And actually when I grab that skill, after I was done leveling, he flops another skill, which is interesting. Siege or Ice Siege. It's only 1 point, but sometimes you're 1 point shy of enough siege to kill something, and it's flexible like Cold Swordsmanship, so that's a nice skill. Okay, so yeah, this dragon, I only have 1 turn. I'm gonna pretty much throw what I've got at him, and let me grab him and bring him down so we have that as a reference. Again, first thing I want to do, I just engage him without moving. I don't do anything else. Well, before I go in, I'll heal myself. I guess what I'll do, I'll power that with gold. And that allows me to get rid of the wound cards. And then fighting the dragon, I'm going to have to power this with the white crystal that I generated earlier. And that is target enemy does not attack. He does not have arcane immunity, so that prevents him from attacking. I don't have to worry about that 12 damage. I love that spell. And there are units that have similar effects, and they're wonderful units. The addition of arcane immunity with Lost Legion made spells like Whirlwind much less reliable, which increases the challenge of the game as far as I'm concerned, because I used to lean on that card like crazy. I would get it whenever I could, because it's just kind of a get out of jail free card, as you're seeing here. But with Lost Legion, you have a lot more enemies that you can't use it against, and it becomes worthless. But at any rate, it works on this guy, and now I need to kill him, and I want to invoke Chivalry to do so. I'd like to not use his crystals if I can, so I'm going to toggle Cold Swordsmanship to physical attack. Ice attack he would resist, so I'm going to go physical. I'm going to play Chivalry for at least 3. I get extra fame and more attack if I do the stronger effect, but I still get the rep. The reputation is the same, and that's my main concern here. So I'm going to play the weaker effect and get attack 2 and reputation 1 for each enemy defeated by this attack. Not in combat, but by this attack. So that would matter if you were grouping enemies, but not even in a larger combat where you're fighting them singly. So it's just +1 reputation here. But these guys, when you kill a Draconum, you normally get 2 reputation. So I'm actually going to bump my reputation by 3 spots if I kill this guy. But coming back to my tally, that's 2 and 2 is 4. And then if I actually can do it this way, that's another 2. And that's another 2 attack. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. And then I can play Promise sideways for 9. If I needed to, I could do I don't give a damn and make it 10. And I'm just going to say I did that. So suck an extra damage. Mr. Dragon. I wound up needing all my cards pretty much, but I was able to take them out and save all those crystals. And that is 1 dead dragon. So as a result, that is 9 fame, taking me from 35 all the way up to 44, and 3 steps on the reputation track, which means I'm actually on the happy side of par here for the first time, which is pretty cool. I could re-roll the die, but obviously that's not going to matter because I'm going to re-roll when we reset for for night 2. But that looks like that is the end of day 2. So quickly to recap, we didn't get any levels or anything like that from killing that dragon, but we're much closer to getting yet another level and another unit slot. We're doing pretty well reputation-wise because I've made a serious effort to do that. I'm short on things like artifacts. I only have the 1 artifact in my hand, but I've got a spell. I'm in a mage tower with a bunch of influence options, and therefore I can get a spell pretty quickly. I have gotten to the point where I've revealed a core, so I'm going to have gold units in the offer next round. The dummy is still green heavy, and he's actually going to be more green heavy, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and just take care of that. Cure is going by the wayside and adding another green crystal to the dummy, which is getting rapidly scary, but he is adding a red to his deck for some consolation, and there's no green here. It was kind of nice that the green came over here. We do still have we actually have only 1 monastery No, we have 2 monasteries that are in play, so those stay there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to clear the offer. We've reset those. We'll go ahead and replenish the unit offer. Let's see what we get. Okay. For some reason, the second monastery skill didn't actually flop, so I'll go ahead and flop that. But our units are fairly interesting. The Ultim Guardians are real nice, but you can normally only get them in a city. Heroes are handy, but I mean, they have their uses, and they're easy to recruit if you have a good reputation, because the positive effect of your reputation is doubled. So if you're getting bonuses, they're pretty easy to recruit. Attacker block 5 is fantastic, and heal 4 is magnificent. And they can actually help you get other people, because those influences are pretty good. But and they even help your reputation when you do it. So, I mean, they definitely have their uses. And on top of that, they're physically resistant. My problem is you have to pay 2 influence to activate them when you assault anything. City, mage tower, anything. So if you want them to do anything, you have to spend 2 influence just to get access to them. And that's after recruiting a 9-point unit. So they're... I don't know. I find them a little annoying. But they definitely are handy. There's no doubt about that. They're certainly better than the scouts. So if you can pick them up, that's great. And they are available in keeps, one of which is right next to me. So that's an option. Now, the Ultim Guardians are also here. And as I said, normally you can only get them in a city. And they are really, really strong. Very, very useful in certain situations. If I have the opportunity, they might be a good candidate for trying to use Call to Glory on. They might be the ones I try to grab. There are a lot of interesting gold units. You really kind of can't go wrong. They're all good. So that's where I'm at. Those are my options. I'm going to reset this, and everything's reset except for our decks, which we need to go ahead and flip and shuffle, and then the dummy's been taken care of. We're going to flip this over to night. Night has fallen, and we'll go ahead and re-roll the mana dice. See what we get. All right. A black die in the source is pretty handy, I gotta say. But I only have a couple of spells. Obviously, my initial thought is hooray for Call to Glory. But I got 24 cards in my deck. It's not showing up anytime soon. The good news is I am drawing 8 at the start of this round because I am still adjacent to my keep. But that's where we're at right now. At the end of day 2, halfway through the game, round-wise, I'm at 44 fame, which is moving at a pretty good clip. I'm at 1 spot up on the reputation track, despite burning a monastery and making several assaults. I have 3 units in tow, and two of them are fair for silver units, and 1 certainly has their uses. I've got 3 skills that are very utilitarian, but they're all very reliably useful in many situations. I've got 24 cards in my deck, which means my deck has grown by 50%. And more importantly, 1/3 of that deck now is either an advanced action, an artifact, or a spell. So the average power of my deck has grown significantly. My hand size is up to 6, and my armor's up to 3. I still have a wealth of crystals to play around with, and I have 2 keeps in tow, meaning that right now on my first turn I'm going to be drawing up to 8 cards, and that's even without considering any tactics that we might draw at the beginning of night. I have the added perk of a black die in the source looking forward. The only real negative right now at this point is that the dummy has 4 green crystals. So he's going to be unpredictable in how fast he's burning through his deck. But we did add a red advanced action, and it looks like probably a blue or something after that. And on top of everything, he didn't grab my favorite tactic that I like to have for day 3. So that was a pretty great round, actually, now that I think of it. We made really good progress. We're very far along in the power curve, and we can really kind of indulge in crushing stuff and getting even stronger before we need to worry about city assaults, which we can really kind of worry about the first one not until day 3. So I've got the luxury of kind of fiddling around here and bulking up. I don't want to just meander around the countryside or anything like that, but I certainly do have the possibility of wandering back through here and grabbing a spell and another keep, and then if there's a city right here, I'm starting out here or adjacent to this keep, I'm drawing 9. That's pretty. That puts me in pretty good shape, and I could go here and grab a dungeon. Maybe even grab some victory points. I've got a bunch of things that I could do just backtracking here. There's not a lot of reason to go over here, given that I can't position a core tile in this spot. So if I shoot down to the monastery or something, that's a big waste. Coming up around here through all this ugly terrain just for this, not really worth it. So I could go this way and reveal, or I could come down here, admittedly through some ugly terrain, but immediately do a couple of assaults. So it's going to kind of depend on what cards I have. But again, thanks to my skills and my units, I do have a bunch of options to play with. So we're in really good shape right now. I'm pleased with where we're at. And in the next video, we will go ahead and proceed with night 2, round 4 of our solo conquest game. I hope you have enjoyed this, gotten something out of it. If you spotted a mistake I made somewhere, I'm sure there was at least one. Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe, as always. And even more, as always. I wish you the best. Good hunting. Mage Knights.